Okay, welcome. Hi. All right, great to have you here. So Sunday sessions, it's been a minute. I think there have been a couple of these, maybe this in this last 6 months or so, but these have been few and far between lately. So it's nice to have this time. I was thinking as I thought about the prompts for today, um, you know, it kind of in the way that a poem doesn't really have a meaning except for whatever arises in the kind of relational space between the poem and the poem, or the poet and the reader of the poem in the sort of in the beyond, in the ethers. That's where the any meaning can arise, and it's very plastic. And in that same way, I was thinking of Sunday sessions as, it's really, this isn't necessarily meant to take you any place. I mean, I have my ideas about like what the themes are and where we're going and why I chose these prompts, but my trust, my faith is that it'll take you where you need to be and meet you where you are, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, welcome. And if you're brand new, you can let me know in the chat and I will take a look at that in a moment just to see how many new folks we have. But it's a pretty loose, open kind of space. We'll do some sitting, we'll do some writing, we'll probably do a little bit of somatics. And, in any of the times where we're just kind of where I've given you an instruction, you can choose to follow that instruction or not. You may want to be here mostly to meditate. And so if I've given you kind of like a writing prompt, you can choose to meditate instead, or vice versa. Or, if you're suddenly needing to be in child's pose eternally, then you get to do that as well. So hello to Todd, and hi Elfie and Charmaine and Tessia and Karen and Dennis and Ellie and all the rest of y'all, some of whom I have greeted and some of whom I have not. It's great to have you here. So the themes that I am circulating are, been looking a lot at the bhava chakra and and specifically the 12 links of dependent origination. And so I've been thinking a lot about kind of a particular place in that causal chain where the like contact with the world or even with internal objects, seemingly solid internal objects or externals, create a sort of feeling tone. Oh, I'm on the wrong network. Speaking of feeling tone, let me just fix that. Okay, so hang tight for a second. Actually, let me just pause. Oops. Hang on a second. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment and I'm going to. Okay, we are back. Okay, so well, nice to see you all full screen anyhow. I know that when we're in full screen, everybody, you can stretch the windows out so you can see the faces or see the screen. You can do what you want, but sometimes I forget to do that. So it's nice to see y'all full screen. Anyway, I'm just trying to orient y'all, if you've just joined, to what my general sense of what we're looking at today is, and then of course it'll just go wherever the muses take you. But we've been working a lot with the bhava chakra in Dharma Bridge. So the bhava chakra, I have a couple of printouts right here. So I'll do that rather than sharing screen. So here's one, and here's like a line drawing of the bhava chakra also. And then one of the things that we've been doing in Dharma Bridge is, let me see if I can find it, is taking a line drawing here where it's not filled in at all, and then filling it in ourselves from our learnings. I see you, Elfie, and Ishtar, me needing to raise my volume. I'll check on that right now. So one of the things that's interesting, okay, volume should be better now. Great. One of the things that's interesting about this kind of map of how conditioned reality works, according to the Buddhist cosmological vision, is that there's a lot to be said. I'm not going to say most of it, but there's this ring around the outside where the 12 links of dependent origination are defined. And that's a big study. But the 12 links of dependent origination essentially detail how because of contact, as I said, with either the external world, like objects in the external world, other beings, substances, like stuff that happens at the job, whatever. But because of contact, we tend to have the arising of a feeling tone of either I like it, I don't like it, or I'm neutral toward it. Okay. Raga, this kind of raga and dvesha are the Sanskrit terms, like attraction or aversion or a neutrality. Happens all the time. Like, we just watch our minds. Like, it's called, do I like the snacks today? Do I not like the snacks today? Do I like how my partner looked at me? Do I not like it? Do I like how my body feels? Do I not like it? So we're constantly in this kind of toggling around between how we experience the the supposed external world or the world of objects, and this can be internal objects as well, but how it affects the I. And so the I gets reasserted because out of that Vedana, out of that feeling, there tends to be an initial kind of a thirst for more of or less of, right? A thirst for more of a certain experience, a thirst for less of a certain experience, a grasping toward, an aversion to. And then from that initial thirst, there we move usually kind of haplessly, we kind of tumble into more profound grasping and clinging. And those are the mechanics. Those are like a couple places in the chain of dependent origination that really contribute to becoming, like falling into that cycle of samsara, according to this cosmology. So I've been thinking a lot about like actually those moments of where the I gets really reasserted, where this sense of like the solid separate self gets reasserted as like potentially actually more like guideposts as opposed to tragedies. Like in a way, like evidence of a bardo, evidence of a gap, evidence of an in-between. So we can kind of watch how our internal states wants to cling, and we can notice that desire to cling as a desire to make solid. And in noticing the desire to make solid, the inherent lack of solidity is actually laid bare. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about and what I've been kind of mulling on, and how that sort of Bardo, which means gap, Bardo's a term that usually is used to refer to the place between lives, like between incarnations, but it really just means gap or in between. And so there are Bardos in our, like a dream is a Bardo, a moment where you realize you're not like completely sunken into thought is a bardo. There's a bardo between breaths, like any little moment where you're like, there's something really interesting happening here. Any moment where you kind of become aware, like, oh, this human consciousness experience is pretty wild. Like that's a bardo. And they're happening all the time, but it's also really scary to be in an unknown. And so then we just kind of tend to, in a way, haplessly tumble into conditioned patterning. So that's what we're going to play with. And I'm going to, that's probably the most kind of like teachery bit. Hopefully I'm just going to like give you guys space to see what comes out for you. Yeah, Karen, why don't you share that directly? I see your comment. Why don't you share it directly? Okay, so let me go into sharing. And oh, okay, what do you see on your screen? Do you see a share? Screen share? No, not yet.
It's
Yep.
loading.
Huh, it's loading. All
Still
right,
loading.
let me stop for a second. Okay, so as I said, for anybody who's just arriving, we're going to do a combination of like poem prompts and sitting and so on and so forth. And the first little bit of this is actually, I'm thinking of it as a writing prompt, but as I said, you can use it however you like. And these are the themes. I just kind of wanted to lay out where we're going. So see at the top of this little list of things today, it says refuge, intention, sit. This was a reminder to self before we go into any writing. Even though I just said we're going into writing, reminder to self. Let's take a moment to just breathe and experience ourselves inside the refuge of our deepest intention. Okay, so go ahead and just drop in for a moment, close your eyes, feel your breath. Feel the sensation of breathing. And take your awareness to the very specific sensation of breathing around the heart center. And so taking awareness to the very center of the chest and then noticing what you feel. Softening a little, letting the breath in. Okay, just noticing where there could be a little softening. Maybe softening the back of the heart. And maybe softening at the kind of base of the heart. And letting your awareness kind of explore what is the sensation of softening. I'm just going to chant a little mantra, meaning of which is basically just sage, sage, great sage, Buddha, Svaha. So we're essentially just calling in awareness of essence. And that can be for you, whatever it is. So you could be calling in your guides, your gurus, your deepest teachers. Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyai Munaye Svaha. 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 Just take a moment to acknowledge the intention that is already here. The intention to turn one's awareness to essence. The intention to experience the now. Perhaps the intention to alleviate suffering for yourself and for all beings. Perhaps the intention to contribute to the awakeness in the field of beings, sentient beings that you are part of. And there may be something very specific that you want to surface also around intention. Just looking at any place in your life where there's a little edge space, a little Bardo, a little in between, any change that you're navigating, any challenge, any possibility, any shadow material that's coming up. And just opening up the intention to add compassion, to expand a sense of metta flowing through you as you work with whatever is alive for you right now. So again, we're going to look a little bit at some of this material around change, Bardos, gaps, places of groundlessness. And we're going to look at also the ways that we sometimes grasp for solidity in ways that might create suffering and how we can see that more clearly. So we'll get to look at pattern. So just soften around the heart as you give yourself permission to relax and let whatever arises arise, remembering that you're in refuge and everything that arises ultimately arises to be illuminated. And even though we sometimes scratch and claw and cling and resist, and sometimes we just struggle to see, ultimately everything that arises does arise to be seen into more fully, does arise to be healed. So, giving yourself permission to relax at the heart, and remember you're in that refuge. Just to relax at the heart. And remember that you matter. This precious human life, this precious experience, this precious now. Just opening to what arises in this precious now. And if you feel like it, you can open your eyes. And if you want to stay inward, you can keep your eyes closed. And if you want to turn your volume down so you could stay in a meditative state, feel free to do that. And I'm just going to bring up some ideas on the screen here. So as I said, looking at the places that we grasp as a response to change that cannot be named. So you might be familiar with this term viparinama dukkha. It's the dukkha of change, but the dukkha of change, viparinama dukkha, really means that which cannot be named. So we get confused often when there's a certain kind of change that really, reality doesn't match what we thought was going to happen. We can't name, we can't quite predict. We can no longer use our models of the world to predict what's coming. So we feel like the rug's been kind of pulled out from underneath us, and we grasp in response. And then we can see that as a problem, but we can also see it as evidence of Bardo, evidence of this invitation into the gap, evidence of the insubstantiality of things, which ultimately is a reminder that everything arises out of this kind of inexpressible light, inexpressible spaciousness. And we can even, in a way, recast our grasping as a kind of, at least originally and like immensely creative act that just tends to, the patterns tend to create suffering, but the original response to change, especially grief and loss, is usually a creative act to bring us back into equilibrium. And then unfortunately we forget what the original losses were, and we just get caught with the habit residue, and the habit patterns. But we can look at that, even that kind of shadow stuff that's hard to look at, as secret, and when it arises. So those are just some ideas. So here's a carved into stone Bhava Chakra, which I think is kind of so incredible. Like there's the workmanship of this. I'm not sure if your technology will allow you to kind of zoom in and out of this, but you can always take a screenshot of it and then zoom in if you want to look more closely. But I talked earlier about the links of dependent origination. It starts over here with a blind man, and then a potter, samskaras, and then the consciousness, a monkey jumping from tree to tree, really the freedom of consciousness, but also the uncontrollability, the kind of untrained mind, monkey mind, and then name and form, and the sense doors, and contact. And then this image here, which is, I don't know if you can see my cursor. I think if I move it faster, maybe it gets bigger. There it is. So that right there, you can see a needle in the eye, Vedana, feeling, right? Negative, clearly, needle in eye, negative, not positive. But Vedana can be positive or negative or neutral. So out of that, then we tend to have thirst. This is an image of someone drinking. And that thirst, that initial thirst, either to get closer to what's pleasant or further from what's aversive, raga devesha, turns into upadana, deeper clinging and grasping, which then leads us to becoming. This is actually pregnancy and birth, and then old age and death. So it kind of makes it look like there's not a real positive spin on human life. And I like to think of human life as a really beautiful thing. But you can also see this as a map of just how conditioned human existence cycles. And the links to me that are really interesting is like where we grasp in order to pretend that things are solid. So we try to get back into habits that seem solid and predictable because we actually, in these earlier steps, like things aren't quite solid. We're beginning with ignorance. We're beginning with this blindness, which is like kind of it's meant to be a reminder of you know, the ignorance of how the self clings to separateness. But you could also think of it as like groundlessness. So anyway, let's just do a little bit of what do I have here? I think I have a little free write kind of prompt coming. Let's see. So liminality. Limin means threshold. Think of this channel, kind of this deep cut river channel, membrane, path, channel. What are the liminal spaces that you're navigating? So here's our prompt. Make a list. Make a list of liminal spaces in your life right now. This should be interesting. This could be fun. Maybe provocative. It could evoke some stuff. But where are the membranes? Where are the boundaries? Where are the psychological junctures? What are the portals, the passageways, the sliding doors, the staircases that you are working with right now or that you've known historically? What's arising? Oops, sorry. What's arising in the present? Let me go back. Pop, pop. And also what have you been working with? What have you kind of passed through? So river crossings, canyon edges, passageways to the outermost spaces. Also in this theme of liminality, like where are the shadow spaces, the places you've kind of hidden, little linings of shame, arbitrary lines crossed, places you avoid, inner and outer, places, states that feel perilous to inhabit. Okay, so I'm going to go on mute um, for like 5 minutes and just let you make a list. Okay, did you make a list? Go ahead and wrap that up. So, my hope there is that you just kind of center in your attention, just like the places that you're navigating in your life. Okay, the sense you have of where you are, what you're traversing, changes that you're in the midst of. And, just to kind of link this into what I was talking about with the Baba Chakra, the idea that I'm playing with is that we sometimes grasp in order to resist change. And of course, change is the most inevitable of all the things. And so we're going to, in the next poem, we'll take us there. So, first of all, a liminal space can be the crossing of a threshold or a transformational stage in a journey of transformation. Entering into liminal space ultimately requires a parting from the ordinary, conditioned world and stepping across a physical and metaphoric boundary. As Octavia Butler has written in the Books of the Living, which is kind of the central like scripture of sorts inside her fictional work, Parable of the Sower. So in Books of the Living, one of the books is God is change, is kind of is the central thesis, and there's this encouragement to also sculpt change, to recall that God is not other than oneself. So sometimes we push a lot against change, but change is coming. So this next poem I thought would be a good jumping off place to look at changes. Yes, it could happen anytime. Tornado, earthquake, Armageddon, it could happen. Or sunshine, love, salvation. It could, That's why we wake and look out. No guarantees in this life. But some bonuses, like morning, like right now, like noon, like evening. But some bonuses, like morning, like right now, like noon, like evening. Okay, so just play with that for 5 minutes or so, okay, and see what comes for you. Okay, start to wrap that up. Okay. So in these sessions, we often will then, after we do some free writing, we'll often just kind of share little bits. So if you feel inspired, you can share little bits of your writing in the chat for others. Your time, just looking at what has come through in your writing and what you want to share. And I'm going to take us slowly toward our next little write. And this poem is really different, or at least for me, it kind of holds a very different kind of a place. The last poem felt like was very much about like change is coming, no matter what, change is coming. And, this is the idea that we're playing with, is how to kind of be in the spaciousness and feel the insubstantiality of things. And then this next poem feels a little different. It's like, yeah, and in the midst of the bigness of change and the immensity of grief and everything that people go through, we really need each other. We need to be reflected. We need to feel each other's support. So, this next poem that I'm going to bring up just reminded me of that. Let's see if I can make this full screen. When I Hear My Mama Sing by Aaron Coleman. An altar pulses open. Some ancient blood love unfurls what breath remembers. My body of her body and all we come from and come from and come from. How each of us curves with the world, blown like a leaf swells from its tree, green urge, earth dark, branching, seconds bend, browning. The flesh of wood forever fills me with her sound of abundant rain. How the world she rounds reminds me what I would be if yes, I trust the feeling pouring through the sound, pouring through as many openings in me as holes in our steel blue strainer. The family tool holds time again and again in hands beneath our kitchen sink, ready to caress the mesh, hold, and let fall water. If I listen for my body living, I hear who I am. Does anybody else want to read? Feel free to raise your digital hand, or if you don't know how to do that, you can wave your hands around and I'll unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. Okay, Dale, thanks.
When I hear My Mama Sing by Aaron Coleman, an altar pulses open, some ancient blood love unfurls. What breath remembers my body of her body and all we come from and come from and come from. How each of us curves with the world, blown like a leaf, swells from its tree. Green urge, earth dark, branching seconds bend, browning. The flesh of wood forever fills me with her sound of abundant rain. How the world she rounds reminds me what I would be if yes, I trust the feeling pouring through the sound, pouring through as many openings in me as holes in our steel blue strainer. The family tool holds time again and again in hands beneath our kitchen sink, ready to caress the mesh, hold and let fall water. If I listen for my body living, I hear who I am.
Thank you, Dale. Yeah. Okay, so we'll do a little writing with this one. And if y'all want to, if there's a particular line that really calls you, you could put it in the chat or say it out loud, or even just a word. Earth dark. Yeah, lots of ideas. Unfurls. What I would be if yes, if yes. My mama taught me harmony with her singing. Hold and let fall water. If I listen for my body living, I hear who I am. Hear who I am with her sound of abundant rain. Hold and fall water. Listening for my body living grounds me to know who I am. Yeah. Yeah. So play and see what comes through in your writing. And again, I'll just be quiet over here and give you 5 minutes to play with this. Okay, start to slowly bring that to a close. And if there's anything you want to share in the chat, please do.
You're muted, Kelly.
Thank you, Tasia. Okay, I'm just going to read some things from the chat. Hear who I am with her sound of abundant rain. Hold and let fall water. Listening for my body, living, grounds me to know who I am. Newness is not scary if I can choose in the liminal moment to wear the shirt my now deceased spouse left for me to feel on my shoulders, back, and chest. Yes, if yes, what I would be if yes, yes. I rejected my mama and closed her out. The reopening was deliberate, a movement toward love for her and for me, deepest of blessings. My body of her body, and we all come from and come from and come from connectedness to all our ancestors and all that is and has been on this earth, in this universe. We are a temporary manifestation and permutation of the flow of life force and physical matter, no independent existence, all interconnected. If I listen to my body living, I hear who I am. She reveals my secrets to me. Unduly punished in childhood, I still fear the same recourse to me being who I am in this body, being what it is. Listen. The shoulder says, let this belief go. Trust. The heart says, dare to be seen. Feel. The gut says, of course that happened. Be. The feet say, walk gently, shamelessly, onto new ground, and leave the door open behind you for love to enter. My body from her body, my mental illness from hers. Shame, shamed, shameful. You are wrong, imposing her pain onto me. I will not carry on this tradition. The days are still getting longer, but that won't last. These days will sift like sand through fingers, dissolve like cloud breath, my body too, into places unseen. Walking with eyes closed, reaching for a hand in the dark, the hand reaches back and we walk and smell the earthy scents of the forests. We sense the darkness and the danger, but we also sense our place in it all and trust and bow to the divine forces of all our mothers. If as I breathe, I remember sitting in my nanny's lap, I feel the wholeness of love and the truth of a secure world to grow and change in. How sacred to connect to the sound. The waves of it washing over me and through me like water. It pours, it washes, it stills, it immerses, it soaks, it falls through. What remains is who I am in abundance. Each morning I awaken and listen for who is there to greet me, what part of myself has shown up to usher me through the day, always hoping it's the true self. Beautiful. Thanks, everybody. And beautiful to just read them all in succession, one piece, one flow of awareness through this collective consciousness. Okay, so let's stand up and let's just do a little movement. Let's just move a little bit, and I'll give you some kind of mild instructions and, narrate a little bit what I'm wanting to do. And you, of course, can take that and just do with it what you will. Just move my machine. So, of course, you can stay in a chair, and I will try to give some recommendations. Like I'll try to adapt whatever I'm doing to something you could do in a chair. And I might also be in a chair part of the time. So I'm going to start standing, but this will totally work for if you're sitting. So it's just feel the shoulders and maybe do a little bit of rolling of the shoulders. And take some long and deep breaths. Feel this body of other that is not other. Just notice little fibers, little crunches, little popping, little shearing movements, sounds. And take your head side to side, letting it reach over to one side, letting it roll back towards center, over to the other side. Chin to chest, and then ear to shoulder, chin to chest, ear to shoulder. And then shaking a little bit, shaking in the hands, shaking in the wrists, shaking in the forearms, shaking in the elbows, letting that shake come up into the shoulders, shaking in the shoulders, feeling the shaking in the chest and the shaking in the whole thoracic cavity, the lungs invariably experiencing some of that vibration and maybe sounding a little just whatever kind of low vibration hum you want to create so that there's a shaking in the lungs more fully, a little vibrating open of anything that feels stuck. Maybe if you're standing, a little bouncing from the knees. And again, a little long, a little humming sound, om, or whatever feels like your own sound. And then maybe a little bit of a bigger kind of shaking, lifting, and then dropping, kind of pulsing, lifting, and then dropping. Just feeling this sense of ground, ground, ground every time you drop the hands down, every time you drop into the feet. If you're standing, bending at the knees, and then lifting and dropping, feeling ground, 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 feeling the earth element in this body of her body, of all bodies, all interconnected bodies. And then shaking again, kind of laterally, feeling the little hum as you shake, that little vibration. And then if it feels right to you, taking the legs open wide. You can do this in a chair also, bending the knees, bringing the hands down onto the knees, kind of sitting into it, maybe twisting a little bit side to side. Okay, and then keeping the feet wide like that if possible, and the toes turned out. Then bringing your torso up and just staying in this kind of deep, wide squat and doing a little bit of gentle bouncing here, just really very gentle though, and just letting that be a reminder of this kind of, in this in this very confusing life with no solidity, no solid self, no other, nothing
Maya.
the same. I'm gonna just mute you here.
Thanks.
You can, if who is that? I can't find you. Okay, maybe it's been resolved. So just feeling this, how the musculature creates this feeling of like, I'm here. Everything's so changeable, so confusing, and yet we can build strength in the body as much as we can and feel ourselves here, grounded. Okay, and then release that, bring the legs together again if you're standing, and shake it out a little bit more. And then reach the arms open. Obviously, this works fine from a chair as well. Reach all the way up. And hold that for a moment, reaching up, feeling the little bit of strain. It's effortful to reach like that. Shoulders might not love it, so take care of yourself. Feel the little bit of what's demanded of you in order to be here in this body is this little bit of effort, sometimes lots of effort. See if you can feel that as a willing stretching open. Find something that feels sustainable for you and reach, kind of stay with it a little bit, even while the body wants to resist, even while it feels hard. Just feel yourself choosing this body, this life, this stretch, this challenge, this liminality, this gap space, whatever it is, and then gently release. And then let yourself just stand, kind of like Tadasana, mountain pose, and just go inward. If you feel balanced, close your eyes and feel the sensations in the shoulders, and around the neck. Feel the warmth. Take a couple more long, deep breaths there. And then bring yourself back to sitting. You can sit in a chair, of course. If you can sit on the ground, sit down on the ground. And we're just going to do a little bit of twisting. Okay, so twist to one side, And then come on back to center and twist to the other side. And then come on back to center. And then close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to take yourself in your awareness to a place that you know really well, like in your dwelling place. Okay, and then take your attention to an area that feels really familiar, like maybe a chair that you always have placed in the same place. And just kind of pull it up in your awareness. And then just imagine yourself moving that chair. So just in your mind, move the chair. Put the chair in a different place. Okay, and then having moved the chair, did something else have to move? And if it did, put that in another place. And then keep going like that as you move things around in the room. Try to move at least 3 or 4 things. Okay, and then hold that new image for a moment. Hold that new image. Okay, and then relax the mind and just let go. And just take a few breaths. In fact, count them. Count 3 long breaths. Breathing in 1. Breathing out 1. Breathing in 2. Breathing out 2. Breathing in 3. And breathing out 3. Okay, and then take your attention back into that same room and see how it shows up. See if it shows up the way that you moved it, the way that you created it, or if it goes back to how it was originally. And just notice that there's a little bit more of a question mark, like where does this chair go? Where should it go now? Where does this easel go? Where does this bookshelf go? Just notice how the mind's like, what's the right place? So you just fiddled a little bit with your awareness of place and how place is arranged. Okay, so now kind of in that same vein, take your awareness to, in the very beginning, I asked you to make a list of the liminal places. So hopefully you have some sense of like what dynamic in your life is in a place of change. And just take your awareness to that place that might be a big question mark for you already. And just imagine it's as if you're walking into a room and things are a certain way. And you've sort of gotten comfortable with things, even if it's not comfortable. You've gotten used to things a certain way. And this liminality is this opportunity to have things shift around a little bit. So imagine that you are walking in and kind of shifting up the furniture a little bit in this dynamic. Maybe it's a relational place. Maybe it's a work kind of thing. Maybe it's a health kind of situation or a habit pattern. Imagine yourself walking into the room of that dynamic and just rearranging the furniture a little bit, changing the pattern, changing how you express yourself, changing the schedule, just rearranging a little bit. And then sit with the new, whatever the newness is that you create. And then take a few long breaths. In fact, count them. Breathing in 1, breathing out 1, breathing in 2, and breathing out 2, breathing in 3, and breathing out 3. And then revisit that dynamic that you just did a little rearranging of and see how you put it. How do you put it back? Or do you put it back to the way that it originally was? Or do you feel the changes that you've put into place? No right answer. Just see what you're comfortable with. Okay, and then just noticing that, noticing if any change took root or not. No right answers, no wrong answers. Just ask yourself now if there's anything that you need, any extra courage, any extra support in order to put any changes in place, in order to envision any shift in these particular dynamics. Any support that you need to be with the changes that are happening seemingly without your permission or willingness or agency. Do you need any support? And see if anything drops in, any symbols, any guides, any companions, any talisman. And take a few longer and deeper and gentler breaths. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and just take a few moments to make some notes about where you went in your imagination. And take a few more moments and just particularly recall if any particular kind of talisman showed up to support you with any of the changes that you maybe made. And if the exercise didn't really make sense, don't worry about it. So I always think of these Sunday sessions as like my main intention is to kind of like light a little fire, around creative practice, creative and like engaging creatively in the world. And then my hope is that, you then have this sense of like, oh, I started that poem. I really want to play with that. Or, oh, I drew that little picture. I want to play with that a little bit more later on today. Or I started rearranging the furniture in that dynamic in my life, and that's exciting. And I have a little talisman that reminds me that there's more light than I've perceived, or more support than I was aware of, or that I have more agency than I thought. And so I'm hoping that there's like a little bit of a sense of feeling refreshed around something. Feel free to share anything in the chat that came through for you. And I think I have one more poem, and I also want to share that next, well, let's see, is it this coming week? Let me look at my little calendrical support here. I often don't know quite what day it is. So I do these days as of just, let's see, I guess as of just a couple months ago, we've only done it 2 months, and we're barely just like hitting our groove here. But I'm doing these free sessions. So it's not this coming week, but it's the next. So it's the 19th and the 20th. I'm doing these free sessions in the Power Meditation membership. So you do need to be a Power Meditation person. So if you're interested in signing up for that, then I will pull the link up on the page here. And you can sign up and do a free trial also. So if you want to come, but the membership itself doesn't feel accessible, then you can also sign up for a 7-day free trial, and then you can cancel it. And if you have ever any issues with canceling or whatever, we're very accommodating. We take care of people. So I'm going to put that in the chat there. Well, actually, let me just show you. Let me pull up this slide. And then I do have one more reading. I was thinking we might have time to do antenna listening, but we're kind of up against the end of our time together. These are, we usually end after 90 minutes, and we're almost there. So just a couple words about this power meditation thing. So what power meditation is, if you are not aware, some of you probably know this, but it's a kind of an interview series that I've done every year for 9 years, coming up on the 10th year. This next year is going to be around creativity, which is exciting. So kind of Dharma, creativity, being with change, a lot of what we've been doing today. So what the power meditation includes, if you sign up for the membership, is first of all stuff with me. So 2 monthly sessions with me, a meditation on a Friday, I guess it's the third Friday of the month, and then a 3-1-2 practice on the fourth. Which will include optional antenna listening sessions, but also live interviews with all the power meditation teachers. You'll get to go to those. That's just included in the membership, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to click this link. I'll see if it works. Do you see this new page here, power meditation page? Yeah, okay. So if you were to click in here, so usually it's like your first year it's 137 for the whole year, and then the next year it would renew at 167. Of course, you can cancel. But if you want to come and do a free trial, you go in here, and the free 7-day trial code is already applied. So you would join for 0, And then after 7 days, you would either commit to the year or cancel. And as I said, if you like forget to cancel, you can write us and we will refund you. Or it's, not interested in, having you lose money accidentally. No one likes that. So we have, pretty small team, but we do accommodate, if you're within 30 days or so, you can get a refund if you don't mean to subscribe and accidentally get in. So just to go back a screen here, in this membership, which I'm kind of excited about. First of all, there's all these past summits. So each one of these summits would show up in your portal. So all of these interviews that I've done over the past years around Dharma and holding space amongst change, non-dual healing and awakening, healing trauma summit, healing anxiety summit, healing self-talk summit. So it's been a big project in my life. These last, it's actually been 9 years, but I think there's like 7 of them that are included here, because the first ones were like on the instant teleseminar, they were audio only. And so anyway, if you join, you'll get access to all of these, lots of great teachings. There's meditations in each one. There's way more than 2 meditations on these, I think. But anyway, there's lots in each one. There's poetry as practice prompts. And then you also, as part of your membership, you get to come to the live sessions. So that's fun. And I hope that some of you will join. And it's nice. It's like, it's a small community. So it's a good opportunity for me to just get to spend some time writing with folks and, doing the 3-1-2 practice with folks and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the Sunday session slide deck, which now presumably, let's see, I'm going to go forward here. Do you see this night sky time lapse photo? Yes? Okay. So I talked about this a little bit last year, but this came up as I was thinking about liminality. A big thing that's so crazy right now is this we're in this like massive transformation in not just, I'm in the States, I'm in California, and just like watching the changes in the States is really pretty staggering. And it's not just here, right? It's also global. And there's this term, planetary phase shift, which refers to the idea that humanity and the Earth system are undergoing a fundamental transformation, potentially leading to a new stage of civilization or a potential collapse, as multiple global crises signal a critical turning point, certainly environmentally, but also in terms of just what's happening in terms of how power is organized. Like there's just a really mask off kind of intensification of some concentrations of power, and it's intense, it's intense times, and a lot of people are sort of reeling and pretty overwhelmed, And so I'm just wanting to bring this into our awareness while we're thinking about our own liminal spaces in our own lives, and noticing that little shift of like, oh, I can rearrange the furniture a little bit. I can just nudge things a little bit. I can nudge things toward this. I can nudge things toward more opening here. Potentially, I can bring in talismans, guides, some sorts of support, and I can build a new world. And in small ways, usually we build worlds. We're world builders inherently, but it's usually small changes that we're able to affect. But I just wanted to bring that into our awareness, that we're also participating in this fundamental transformation at a really, really grand scale. And it's a good thing to pull up a sense of faith, a sense of trust, a sense of, things are unfolding, and there's a lot of beautiful energy, a lot of beautiful human energy, wisdom beings, all kinds of support. So we get to keep leaning into that, remembering the little bits of agency that we have, remembering to soften up with ourselves, not to beat up on ourselves so much when we fall into patterns, but keep like just moving ourselves gently toward positive changes. Okay. So I want to just close up with that, and I will leave that there. And I hope you all are doing really well in whatever ways, you know. I know things are intense, but you know, there's also probably some good things. I've got a couple of dahlias in bloom. I've got some snapdragons and dahlias, and I've got somebody just gave me some what are they called? Button flower seed or something that I'm going to put in my yard. And my cat had a big abscess on her face and she healed. You know, there's good things happening. So, you know, tell yourself the story of the beautiful things when you can and let the heart soften up. Okay, and I hope I get to see you. I'm going to put this link in the chat if you want to join the Power Meditation membership. There will be an email that'll go out. I think there's supposed to be an email that goes out. I don't know. I'm supposed to write it, so I should know. But I'm supposed to send an email out that'll include a link to that membership if you want to sign up and then come to the free sessions that are the 19th and 20th, I guess, not this coming week, but the following Friday and Saturday. Okay. Lots of love, and may any of the little shifts and changes that open up for you, any of the insights that have dropped in, any of the extra warmth that you might have toward your own experience, any of the agency you're able to see in any of the stuck places, any of the grace that you've given yourself, may all of it extend out to all beings. May all sentient beings be well. May we contribute to the healing of suffering. May we contribute to the remembrance of awakening. Oh, okay, take good care. Bye. Ciao, ciao.